Hey everyone, and welcome back. We've got a bit of a unique opportunity, and I thought it would be a great video. We may cut this up into 2 or 3 videos depending on the length of time here. I want to introduce you guys to Mark. Yeah, Mark is from West Virginia. And we're building a 128 for him for his, what year is your bike again?
2019.
2019. For his 2019, and I'm going to let you talk about your riding style a little bit and just kind of give us an idea how you came here. But Mark has had a unique opportunity as well. He's driven, well, last night you drove 10 hours to be here, 10, 11 hours. He's made several trips down here and has been able to see every aspect of the build process. Everything from machining his cylinders to his heads, the cranks, basically he's been able to see absolutely every aspect of it. And he wanted to be here when we actually bolt this thing together and be a part of it. So stick around, let's hear Mark's story and let's build up an M8.
Well, what brought me here, right, was I had a problem with my motor, right? And I was searching online for answers, and that's when I came across your videos.
Right. Yeah.
And started watching the videos and a lot of the things, right? I had the big, everybody knows, the sumping issue.
Right.
And at that time, in one of your videos, you were asking for a volunteer bike.
Yes.
Right, to help with a solution. So when I saw that and I knew I had a major problem, I shot that email right out and brought my bike down the first time to see if we could see if that solution would work.
Right.
I came back, got the bike, went on a long trip, and the bike was almost done by the time I got back. And so I started looking for, I knew I had a problem with the motor. I took it to the local Harley dealer. They did the leak down test. I put a bore scope in my cylinders. It was shot. Yeah. And so I needed to find how to do this. And I had been watching your videos. And I touched base with you. You kind of gave me an idea what I was looking at in terms of dollars and cents, right?
Right.
And then I started looking at, well, let me weigh all my solutions, right? What are my options here? And there were crate motors, and Harley was like, we'll rebuild it for you. But nobody could talk to me about the root problems. And my concern really was, I don't want to invest money in this thing and then have the same problems, right? You have to get down to the real problem, figure out what that is. You were the only one that I found that actually talked about the causes of, like, the sumping, for example, right?
Right.
And I watched all the videos. I watched everything you had online, and the level of detail and how you paid attention to every single component that you were building and the tolerances that you talked about. I knew I was going to have to make a big investment. So for me, I looked at it and I was like, yes, it's more money, but I'm going to have this thing for years. And I'm a simple guy, right? I broke it down to the simplistic. It's going to cost me X amount of dollars if I have this bike for 10 years. The additional investments, peanuts. But the ability to have a hand-made, blueprinted motor by a craftsman that actually machines every single part to very exacting tolerances was super appealing to me.
Sure.
I wasn't chasing the horsepower. Yes, I want the power, right? My riding styles, I do a tremendous amount of long distance touring. I do a good portion of it two-up with my wife, but I also go out for a considerable amount of time with my friend, where it's just the two of us. So I like the hot rod component. Mm-hmm. As well as to be able to fully pack. We camp, so we are fully packed when we go out. I got tents, sleeping bags, air mattresses, everything you can put on a bike. So to be able to have that torque when I need it, to get up a hill or ride in the mountains, right? That's kind of my style and what we were looking for. And then I started investing the time to come down because I wanted to understand it, right? It's appealing to me. And so I called you, we made the arrangements, I got the bike down, and over time I've made quite a few trips down here.
Yes, you have.
And it's a huge investment in time, right? It's 650 miles each way, right?
Right.
And I usually have very limited windows that I can do it in. Mm-hmm. So I'll be back on the road tonight, I rode down last night. I'll be back on the road tonight to get home because my windows are short, right? But for me, the investment in time to understand the level of quality that you put into every single component I've watched you do, and you're right. I've had the ability to sit here and watch you do heads, to watch you do almost everything that goes into this motor. Just super appealing to me, and to be able to have, it's a pride thing for me. I told you this early on, right? I'm going to have a Baxter's motor in my motorcycle, and there's not a lot of them on the road. And it's not just parts slapped together, right? It's a methodology. It's a well thought out motor, right? And each component has a very specific tolerance that it's built to and validated. And I've watched you do it, which was very cool to me.
Yeah,
right. To be able to see this happen.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you did. You sat over there. You watched me do the heads. You the cylinders. You've seen
everything.
Every aspect from the case assembly, the setting up the cranks, the whole deal.
Yeah,
that's right.
And to me, every time I've done that, it has validated, right? And we've talked about, it's a commitment to time. Right? This doesn't happen overnight. If I want a fast solution, I could have went and bought a crate motor. I could have took it up to the local Harley dealer. Neither of those two things were appealing to me, right? I think the ability to have a handmade, blueprinted motor has been worth every minute and every dollar that I put into it, right? To ride out of here, and now to have the ability to have my hands on my own motor when it's all put together. And when I ride that thing around and people ask me questions about this beast, I can actually say, not only is it a Baxter's motor, but I was there when this thing was assembled, and I helped assemble it. Doesn't get any better than that.
Well, cool. Well, I'm glad to have you here, man.
It's awesome.
I mean, there are a lot of things that, well, again, you got to see the steps, but there's still a lot of steps in between that I'm going to show you some, just for validation's sake, show you a few things along the way. Other things that we check during the build. Again, it's, we're assembling an engine 2 or 3 times, sometimes 4, making machining steps along the way. You've seen it. You've seen me put one together dry, take it apart, put it together, take it apart.
Put the liquid in there, measure the volume.
Exactly, doing it all. So what we haven't done, for camera's sake anyway, the things that we've already done, he's seen. You've seen it on other videos anyway. The crank's fully done. It is a Dark Horse crank. It's their full man of war deal. Balance plug, trued, welded, tapered main bearing. I have already set it. Obviously, the case is assembled. I've already set it up. You have exactly 1.5 thousandths in play on this one. As far as you have, it's just under 1 thousandths at the tip of the pinion shaft, so we'll have no problem with your gear drive. You had, what was the number I gave you? Was it 3/10?
3/10.
Yeah, 3/10 of 1 thousandths total indicated run out at the pinion bearing, and it was 7/10, 8/10 on. I've got it written down over there, but it was 7/10 over here. So that crank is razor perfect. I have already got the rings and labeled them, as you can see. So Norman, that's basically, you've seen me do that too.
I've been here when you've done all this stuff.
That's right. You were there for that too.
I've seen you when you've assembled heads and put the valves in and checked them and machined them. I've seen it all.
You've seen the whole deal. So the things that I haven't really checked, because it's kind of final assembly type stuff, I have already checked your rocker clearance in the head, bolted them down, and that axial movement. We're dead on the money there. No need for anything. You have very little wear on the towers right there, so that worked out great. That's been checked. I've checked the pump. What I haven't done is check backlash on the cam gears, but because the crank is so straight, we're going to have between 1/2 to 1 thousandths backlash on the cam gear. That should be perfect. We're also one more time going to verify deck height of the piston in the cylinder. I had to trim the base of one of the cylinders because we were off just a hair, but now we've got that squared away. I did end up getting a custom head gasket to make up for a few thousandths on one, so we should be within roughly 1 thousandths of an inch of piston to head clearance one to the other.
See, you can't buy the parts and assemble them and come up with those tolerances.
Right.
You can't.
Yeah. And what it takes to do it, because everything has a bit of a manufacturing tolerance. You've got the height of the case from the center line to the top, the length of the rod, you have the height of the cylinder, thickness of the gasket, the compression height of the piston here to here. When you take stack tolerances is what it's called, you tack them all up. Some are going to be plus or minus a little bit, but that magic number, we know your combustion chambers are sized perfectly. So that magic number is what is that total chamber volume inside the cylinder, and we want to make sure, piston to head clearance and all that stuff. That's kind of the final number after everything else. It's that final resulting number. So what it truly is, when we're at this point and everything that's been mocked and checked and all this stuff, it's almost like the check mark on all your work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm within a thousandths, on that.
That, my friend, is why I'm here.
And if it's not within a thousandths, I'm gonna be embarrassed. So we should be within
I'm gonna look really close.
You're gonna look really close, and we're gonna measure it all. So you got anything else to add? I mean, we're gonna be hanging out and building a motor.
No, all I can say is if you're gonna get a motor done, it's absolutely worth the investment in time to participate in it wherever possible.
Yeah.
Right. It's just it's been an amazing experience, and I made a friend.
Made a friend. So what I'm going to do, guys, and again, we're going to put the cam plate together and all that stuff. I'm not going to go into detail of everything I'm doing, but I'm going to just let the camera roll, let you guys look over the shoulder. You've seen other cam plate videos and all that type of stuff before. So this is really more Mark's experience, really, and just getting to see this whole thing. So if I run into any tech stuff, I'll mention it while I'm putting it together, but other than that, we'll get rolling. And I do want to give a big mention. You guys see my new shop apron? Check out Kurt Green at Bare Bones Leather. He made this thing for me, and I can use it welding, grinding, all that kind of stuff. I've had all kind of aprons over the years, but this thing, you can see the back, how it works. It's not on your neck. I just want to give a shout out to Kurt, and it's an awesome piece. He's a craftsman.
And it's very stylish.
It's stylish,
it's
right?
Stylish.
It's handsome.
It's
right?
handsome.
It's handsome. All right, so let's get started. All right.
I'm hoping this is the last time I see the inside of this camera. I've seen it more than I care to.
Well, I tell you, man, yours was one of those that was, I've mentioned on a lot of videos about the compounding issues. When they sump, you gotta stop riding them. Wow. You gotta stop, and you gotta have it checked, because yours was one. It was sumping a little bit, but it got on that trip. It compounded rapidly.
Oh yeah, we did 6,500 miles on a bad motor.
Yeah. You wherever it's comfortable for you, because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing.
Yeah,
if you want to sit right there, that's fine too. So I'm going to talk to the camera a little bit along the way. So
you actually can feel there is zero movement this way.
That's correct. It's actually, now when you set these things up and you set up your end plays and you're checking clearances, you always want to do them dry, because assembly lubes take up a lot of that clearance.
Right.
Because there's so much assembly lube in this, you won't feel that. But when it's dry, it's 1.5 thou. So what you get,
my other one moved like crazy.
Yeah, I mean there's very tiny amount of movement. And then you'll notice too, when we put the gears together, I know it's you're not going to believe me, but you'll just have to see. I can grab that top gear and do like that. I can tell you if it's within 1/2 to 1 thou.
I've seen that on the video. I know that you could do that. I've watched it happen.
And you do it dry, and you get that little bit of a ting, 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 and you barely feel it move, right? If you put assembly lube on that,
you lose that.
You lose that clearance. And so when you're checking that, and that's why we do typically the dry assemblies.
Yes.
And then we pull them back apart, because, again, yeah, you get it.
Mine was really sloppy when I was doing this work.
Yeah. So this is a lot of folks, the O-ring versus non-O-ring on the back of the pump. So you have the groove there. That's the O-ring there that seals against the crank bearing there. So yep. That's what we're putting in there.
That was a bear. So like I put a cam in here, in the
Right.
original go-round, and a can plate and an oil pump. So I
Right.
got destroyed on my...
I'm gonna tell you a tip. Never use red shop rags to assemble an engine.
Yep.
The lint.
Yep,
Everywhere.
makes sense.
I always use brand new microfibers when we do these. So anyway, you were saying.
I was saying it was the getting this thing to snap in for me was a real pain in the neck.
Right. Oh, the O-ring itself?
Getting it all aligned in there
Yeah.
was just a pain in the butt.
Now, did you put the O-ring in the case first, or did you put it on the pump first?
I put it on the pump.
Perfect. A lot of folks will put the O-ring. Now, it shouldn't matter, but it does. If you put the O-ring in the case first, you stand a chance of catching it with the corner of that pump
Makes sense.
and rolling it in. It does make it a little harder to put it in starting here.
Yes, it was a
But
pain.
yes, it's a pain.
But I couldn't get my big fingers in there anyway.
Right.
Thing's too small.
So we're going to disassemble the whole thing to give it one more check. I love stuff like this. Gym stuff. I know I don't do the tool tech thing just because there isn't a day that goes by that I don't use something of theirs. And they put so much thought into this stuff. So
Look at that, threaded to push the pin out.
alignment pins.
Very clever.
And what this allows me to do, instead of fighting the G-rotors in the pump, I actually put that in there and then very precisely align up gear rotors to that, and it'll just slide right on, so you're not wiggling and jiggling.
Oh
and
God,
doing
yeah.
that crazy
Had I
stuff,
known
yeah.
that, I should have watched that one.
Yeah. Man, we look good. It's a good fit. There's that slip fit, no shake, right?
Yep.
Never have enough lube.
Didn't have to choose.
See the notch on the back?
Yep.
I've seen some folks, I'll show you on the camera, little notch on the back right there. You always have to make sure that that notch faces the crankcase. It allows clearance for that notch back there. I'm gonna let you get your hands in this and spin a torque wrench a little bit.
All right.
And I'll warn you in advance, there's little things that I'm just anal about that to some degree may not matter too much, like even how you hold a torque wrench and where you hold it. It's
I'm
just
gonna get a lesson today.
it's me and my style. It's never failed me, so some may laugh at me and go, it don't matter. Well, you know what, it matters to me, and and that's enough. So
That's why they pay you the big bucks, my friend.
yeah, no, that's why you pay me the big bucks.
That is exactly right. That's exactly right.
Well, and what I like about what you've been able to see, you know, there's the assembly side. What you're seeing is, I say, the basic portion of this is the final assembly.
Oh yeah.
But you've got to see all the other aspects that lead up to it, because it's, and, you know, that was one of the reasons I started the channel, because a lot of people have no idea of the complexities that go in. Like even on my shovel heads over there, I've put up a few pictures of that. I'm going to be doing the video for that shovel head, but what all's involved, and it's just doing a valve job on a set of heads, but there's so much more that gets involved with it.
And I'll tell you, it's interesting, right? Even like, I watched a lot of your stuff, and I tried to do this. I tried to do.
Right.
I did all this work, right? Not the motor part, but the cam chest piece, right? And watching your videos for me when I was doing the things that I thought I could do myself, super helpful. I mean, it's really cool to see all this stuff happen, and it makes a difference when you need to make a decision, right? But also, the insight that it gives you, and the videos give you on what are the potential issues you're facing, what are the potential solutions that you're facing, and how to actually do some of that stuff. Super, super helpful.
Yeah, good.
This is all well and good, right? But if it's not tuned properly,
Oh, it'll destroy it.
it destroys it, right? And
That can make or break an engine.
So that actually does the gear alignment as well.
Yeah.
Which was...
Everybody can see there. Yeah, it's a 475G.
Very cool.
At least touch it. Touch it, feel it. I'm finding on every M8 that sumps, you've got frosting on the cam lobes, even valleys in the cam lobes, and you look at the rollers, they're destroyed. It's oil starvation issues. One thing I always check, because you got an oil hole that's in here, I always want that oil hole to be right in that spot right there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you got a little bit of a, it's a pinion oiler. It's that little tiny pinhole that's down inside there.
Oh yeah.
And it's just a cross check thing, because machines can make mistakes, right? So we just want to do a visual, and it's basically lining up with that hole right there. And we just,
Smart.
It's a little check and balance.
See, that is the attention to detail.
I always like to feel the bushing there. Should be sunk in all the way. Because again, lube takes up space, right?
Yep.
So what I try to do is keep, if you notice, I kept wiping off of the machine mating surfaces.
Yeah.
I try to keep the assembly lube off of that. So when I mate them together and I torque them down, it's not trying to squeeze all the assembly lube out.
Yep.
So I always, right before I get to that point, I'll wipe, make sure these surfaces are clean, make sure there's no assembly lube. I don't want to put my fingerprints on them. Again, it's me being anal retentive, and it's not really going to hurt anything, but it's clamping load on
attention to detail.
It's clamping load on a fastener, right? And that matters. But see that little oil in your crank right there? That's what squirts the oil through that tiny hole.
Super excited to see the Jim's Tappet stuff too.
Oh, the fit kits, yeah. I actually waited. I've had them sitting, and this is something for folks on the camera. So I've always said a good tappet. A lot of people think, you soak them in oil overnight, it fills up with oil. Well, if it does, that's a bad tappet. It should not fill up with oil. If you soak it
it
for
should go straight
a week,
through it.
It shouldn't fill up, because the tolerances are so tight, right?
Right, it should drain.
So I've had your tappet sitting in that oil overnight.
Okay.
Now the reason I did that is I wanted you to see, when I hook it up to the Mighty Vac, how much air it pulls out of the tappets, even though it's been soaking overnight. So it's a neat little aspect of it there. And then see, you have a pinhole right there on that one as well, to oil the cam. So y'all just want to check those holes, make sure there's no burrs and all that other fun stuff.
Now we took the balancer, right? There's no balancer in here now.
No balancer in there anymore.
And so that eliminates all the splashing oil in the crank, right?
Well, technically you should have no oil down there anyway. But what it does, one, it's less parasitic loss.
Okay.
All right. It's a less rotating assembly. It's one less bearing you have to worry about.
Okay.
So it's kind of a combination of all that. But because the crank's perfectly balanced, there's a dynamic range for anything that's balanced. Right. So if you noticed on this bike with the balancer in it, kind of like twin cam Softails did, once you got above 75, 80 miles an hour, the faster you went, you started feeling a little bit of a harmonic.
Yeah.
Right? Well, that's because you're outside the dynamic range of that balancer.
Okay.
So when the cranks are designed, that's why we ask, where do you ride, where do you shift, all that stuff, because you have a window for which you can balance that crank.
Okay.
So by removing the balancer, you're going to find at idle, it shakes like a twin cam.
That's exactly what I liked.
Yeah, so it's going to shake like a twin cam because you're outside the dynamic balance range of the crank. But as you go faster, you're going to find you've got a 1500 to 2000 RPM window that you ride in because of how your crank was spec'd, that it's smooth as silk and smoother than when it had the balancer in it.
Okay.
And you'll find basically the faster you go, it's going to be even smoother. So.
Oh yeah, so that Jim's tool stays there the whole time. Brilliant.
It's less chance of scarring on your pinion shaft bushing and all that, and you just let her walk right on in there. put the bolt on the end of the cam like that. It's easy to hold it in place. I like doing it this way because you got less things that you got to hold and try to manage.
Yep.
You know, instead of just sliding the cam into the plate first. Might be about a half a thou too big.
What does that mean?
That just means I'll ball hone that pinion just a little bit, pinion bushing just a little. I didn't realize that the camera wasn't running, but what we had to do, we had a little too tight of a fit on our pinion shaft bushing here onto this new crank assembly. So a little too tight for my comfort, so we basically honed that bushing out just a tad, only about a half a thousandth really is what it equated to. But needless to say, it was a little too tight, so we had to go back and correct that.
You know, you can see the difference in the fit with the assembly lube versus the dry fit. A little bit, you can see it all pop out. I mean, there really is a difference.
Now, what we had felt, how I knew that, is obviously we started sliding the cam plate on, and I wanted to feel, I kind of have a pretty good idea what a flywheel should feel like with assembly lube and all that. So it just felt a little too snug. We measured it, confirmed it, and all it was is that the pinion shaft, again, is about a half a thousandth bigger than what it should be. So, you know, just take a little bit off that bushing. Now you reach up and feel the flywheel, feel the difference.
Oh God, yeah. That's night and day.
Yeah, I mean,
it's really drastically different.
Drastically different.
Yes. But it's astounding how different. I mean, for the minuscule amount of material that you took off to make it fit, the rotation of the crankshaft is drastically different.
And we only took off about a half a thousandth.
Yeah, I mean, it's astounding.
So what we do, every fastener has been run on a brass wheel. Every one has been cleaned with brake cleaner.
Cool.
And because we want our Loctites to stick, right?
No, it's interesting. I noticed that you use the little tubes of the Loctite.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because they came with the screw, or is there an advantage to not using a bottle that can dry up? And
actually, a bottle will never dry up.
Really?
You know, a piece of trivia? Piece of trivia. You notice when you buy a bottle of Loctite, it's only about half full of liquid.
Yeah.
Notice that? People think they're getting ripped off. Loctite cures in absence of oxygen. If you were to fill the bottle all the way up, it would harden.
Interesting.
So my rule of thumb is I put enough Loctite in it, wrap it all the way around the thread, basically equal to the diameter of the bolt. And that seems just enough, because what can happen, again, we were talking about torque load on bolts. That Loctite, when you squeeze it in, it actually squeezes out from the hole that's in behind it and gets between the cam plate and the case and all that kind of stuff. Well, back in the day, they actually used to say on oil pumps not to use Loctite on the pump at all because people would overuse the Loctite.
Interesting.
Yeah, so, and all the holes in the case, you'll notice how easy it's going in.
Yeah.
All of them have been thread chased.
No kidding.
That's all that stuff that we did before you got here. When I was telling you, I need to check this, I need to do this, do this. Well, I needed to chase the threads because I didn't want to have to do it with you here and waste your time. And the cam plate that's so rare that I see that problem. That was one of the things that I didn't check in advance.
Now the gear drive should be a much smoother shifting experience, right? Because this thing was clunky as heck.
You won't really notice a difference on shifting.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, you won't really. Gear drive is more about peace of mind, knowing you'll never have to go in here again.
That's very peaceful.
And there's no substitute for absolutely perfect valve timing. That's the reality of it.
That's where I get my lesson on how to hold a torque wrench.
We're gonna go. It's anal. It's anal. I know it. It's anal. But it's. Hey man, it's just who I am. I don't like to use extensions with torque wrenches if it's at all possible,
right?
Because you'll lose it. So I hold them here, and I don't like to do. You'll see practice. You'll see people go cheat, 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 cheat until it clicks. I don't like doing that. I like to have a long, slow swoop and turn, and for it to click. So I'll hold my thumb here. and go at it slow. Then you get your brake. All right. So
There you
keep
go.
1 through 5 or 1 through 6.
All right, I'm building my engine.
There you go.
Whoops. You didn't see that, right?
I didn't see a thing.